Tage, let's move on here. When I was thinking about what I wanted to lead my Monday column with, eventually I just settled on like the NFC North is so fun. I love the NFC North. I think it's the best division in football. It's the only division that has every team over 500. The Bears are quote last in the division at 3-2, but every team really has different things that I think you can be excited about. Let's start with the Bears here, where of course the whole season is going to be based around how is Caleb Williams doing. And we have seen him handling protection adjustments up front and making audibles at the line really all season long from week one. Now, against the Panthers, of course, that's not the best defense in the league by any means. You get right in a few different ways, but he was able to connect on some of those deep throws that he was missing the week before. I thought the Bears did a good job rolling him out just a little bit more, get him to kind of work on the outside. But he's comfortable in the pocket, and we saw some of his kind of his in pocket playmaking where he's able to escape some of those muddy looks. So I just feel like I feel comfortable saying he has it. Concerns that you have, there'll be ups and downs this season. I just think he's shown enough ups already, and obviously through his college film, kind of the priors that you have there. Where even if I don't love the offensive design all the time, I just think he's a player that is doing rare things for a rookie based on how much responsibility he has, based on how like you can feel the checks that he's making. You can see on film. It's like, okay, well, this guy is rotating down. Now he's pausing everything. He's flipping something over in the other direction to get a receiver open. And yeah, I think, a lot of quarterbacks can do it, but some quarterbacks are literally not given that responsibility. Like that is just either on the center or that's kind of through the play call. So to see him doing that, I think is a really good sign for kind of how mature of a quarterback he is already.
That makes a lot of sense. It is interesting to hear that perspective of what Caleb Williams is given at the line of scrimmage, and it checks out in some of his underlying metrics where he has improved as like production wise every single week. He's been the starter, and so when you mentioned just how much was put on his plate, it was probably a lot for a rookie quarterback to handle, and so you've seen him just handle that better each and every week, and a 50% success rate in any particular game is good for a quarterback. Like that's a good game to have. When you're able to hit that number. In the first 3 games of his career, he had less than a 50% success rate and he had a negative EPA per play. But these last 2 games, he's now had a positive EPA per play and has kind of wavered between that 50% success rate mark against the Rams and the Panthers. And those are defenses that weren't as good as the defenses he played earlier in the year, but you can just see more progression from him. And he had a higher success rate last week against the Rams than he did yesterday against the Panthers, but his EPA was much higher because the explosiveness was really there. He hit DJ Moore down the field multiple times, which was really key for this Bears offense. And you start to realize that a lot of Caleb Williams' bad start was just him not being able to connect on deep balls down the field with DJ Moore and Roma Dunze and players like that. And so now that he's kind of having some of that variance flip in his direction, you can start to see the production really pick up for the Bears offense.
And then this team has an identity where you have that kind of playmaking at the quarterback spot. You have, DJ Moore who's able to come down with that ball in the end zone this week. And then you just have a really, really good defense where they're able to, create pressure from that defensive tackle spot. Of course, Jalen Johnson is just, I hope he's a household name. He's a household name to me because I keep on seeing him make plays, but just a really awesome cornerback that is kind of a cornerstone of this unit that I think is just really good.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Like this defense does have pieces. Jalen Johnson has had a 21.5 passer rating when targeted this year, which is the second best among outside corners, only behind Rick Woolen. So that's been really impressive. And then they've also just gotten some necessary jumps on their defensive line. Like there were some concerns with how their interior defensive line was going to look this season, but Gervon Dexter has played pretty well this season. He's getting pressure and sacks on the quarterback pretty consistently. And then outside, DeMarcus Walker has also been getting some pressure as well. So just names that you might have not expected to take a jump this year that were going to be playing snaps for them have done so in their pass rush. And that's really helped the back end as well in their defense.
All right, Tage, let's move on, continue through the NFC North. I want to talk about the Packers next, where they win kind of a back and forth game against the Rams. And now this year, they're again similar to the start of last year, where, of course, Jordan Love hasn't played every game, but they are an explosive offense that has they're ranked higher in EPA per play as compared to their success rate on offense, which is kind of low. I think it's like under 40%. So I don't know, like, is that characteristic of LaFleur? Of like, that's just, what his offense is going to be? I think it's interesting because Jordan Love is just such a big game hunter. Like he hits both ends of the distribution where you get that kind of throwaway pick six, but then you get just like a ridiculous Jaden Reed touchdown. I don't know, like I just don't know. When I think about the offense, I guess I start to worry just a touch, just because I feel like by the end of the season, like this team is going to be on a run. I just am not sure if it's going to be a really good run or just like a really concerning run. I think overall, I certainly trust Jordan Love. I think it's the right decision to have him there for the long term. And, I guess I will say that I just, how much I think Matt LaFleur is so good at designing explosive plays. They have that really nice one to craft where you're conflicting the defense based specifically on how the defense really wants to match your offense. So I think just a good understanding of that, even while maybe like some of the fundamentals at this point are maybe like a smidgen concerning.
Yeah, so there was a very memorable negative moment in this game, obviously, with the Jordan Love pick six. But the most memorable positive moment from the Packers offense was that deep bomb to Jaden Reed that he caught in triple coverage. And so, like, I want to hear from your perspective. Was that a good decision by Jordan Love to throw that? Was it a good throw or good catch? Like, kind of how are you distributing the credit on that explosive pass by the Packers there?
It's so hard because you're watching the result and it's like, all right, well, you're asking your quarterback to make some of those throws. I think, as long as if you feel like, hey, the safety is kind of hanging back in a spot. Now it did look like that player had like a real ability to make an interception on that play, but I mean it's hard to be mad when the throw comes down. Like I guess I'm having a hard time thinking about it just because if you're gonna be the Packers offense, can you live without some of those throws? I mean, I guess so, but I do think you have Jordan Love, who again, like really wants to make those throws kind of for that specific reason. You're really giving your receivers some chances, but of course, you don't want to just be kind of lobbing up turnover worthy plays because eventually that's going to be able to come back to bite you as well. So I don't know. I guess as a watcher, I'm like Jordan Love, keep making those throws because it's entertainment either way, right? Like it's going to be really good for the Packers offense, or it's going to end up in an interception. I wonder, is LaFleur gonna look for different ways to kind of handle it? I guess I don't think so because if you're gonna be an offense that isn't having the same down to down success, you have to generate explosive plays, which they've been able to do. And part of that involves risk. Where we think of the Vikings game where Love was throwing, I think, into tight windows, kind of like because he had to. Like you were down by 28 points. If you don't throw the ball downfield and kind of throw it into tight situations, you're just gonna have like no chance of coming back. So overall, just like, I don't know, Jordan Love, just keep throwing those for all of our entertainment.
I can get behind that for sure. It definitely is entertaining to watch the Packers offense right now because of some of those throws, but also just like the two skill position players that have seemed to separate themselves from the rest have been Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft, where you have Jaden Reed third in yards per out run on the season among wide receivers. We mentioned that great catch on the deep ball, just like very impressive play by him, just a very explosive player in general, and someone that Love clearly trusts down the field. And then you have Tucker Kraft at tight end, who's just eating up yards after catch so far this season. He's sixth among tight ends in yards per out run. And in this game in particular, he had 72 yards after the catch, which is great on face value, but 36 yards after catch over expected per next gen, which is just insane for a tight end. So when you have an offensive line that's playing pretty well, only allowing one pressure on 16 non-blitz dropbacks yesterday, and then you have guys like Reed and Kraft, there can be success in this offense, even if the down-to-down consistency isn't there, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and you're hope that you're able to, I guess, sustain explosive plays. Where I keep thinking about that recatch. It was such a sweet catch, and it's so funny when you watch it kind of on film because there's like three guys that are there, but really like one and a half that can kind of make a play on it. And I don't know what the cornerback is expecting the ball kind of in a different spot. I think when he releases the ball, you could let him get away with it. I do think about the defensive side of the ball here for the Packers. We're coming into the year. I think I was excited about this defensive line. I actually think the defensive line has underperformed just a touch. I think that Jeff Hafley's gotten really good play out of his safeties. Of course, Avery McKinney has had an interception in every single game. I did think that they're sprinkling in more of the kind of exciting pressure looks that I would have liked them to have in week one against the Eagles. That Stafford did a pretty good job navigating it. And now I keep thinking, like, do I want to be a defense that is playing like tight man coverage, just pressuring and then kind of creating tight windows? And when I think about the Lions, I certainly think yes. Of course, it's easy to say that, and then you think of maybe some teams that maybe they aren't as good in man coverage, or like the Jaguars kind of getting beat by some of those deep ball by the Colts it is. But I don't know, Tage. Maybe like the Packers are just like they have my heart because they're just like a variance in both directions team.
They are that. And yeah, when you do play that type of defense, it definitely increases your variance. But I think it goes back to kind of the principle we always talk about of trying to be not only unique if you have to be, like if you have the talent disadvantage, like try to just like increase your uniqueness to make it hard for opposing units to prepare for you, but also just like be diverse in terms of how you're deploying whatever side of the ball you're on. So like when it comes to Halfley here, like being diverse, deploying different coverages, making it harder for opposing offenses to game plan during the week because they have to prepare for so many different things seems to be the key for a lot of teams. And as long as he keeps doing that, I think it should work out pretty well. But one Xavier McKinney stat that I think is just insane is that he's been targeted 7 times this season. 2 of those have been receptions and 5 of those have been interceptions. So he's at a 1.4 passer rating when targeted, which is just it's like an insane number to think about. So just like such a special player, the type of player that you want to give that type of contract to if you're the Packers.
Yeah, he seems like insulted whenever anyone throws the ball in his direction. So it has been awesome to kind of see it where it's crazy. Like it's a home run streak. Like you're just banking on this guy to be able to make a play. It has been fun. And we'll move on to the Vikings here, a team that you can continue to bank on making plays on the defensive side of the ball where they just kind of ate up the Jets offense in a lot of different ways. I was happy with how they were fitting the run as well. But I think the more interesting part probably on the offensive side of the ball for the Vikings, the Sam Darnold game, it was interesting. I think that you could look at it and say he struggled. But then you could also say the Jets consistently play really tight to receivers. They have really good cornerbacks. Even when Sauce Gardner was missed time in this game, DJ Reed, I thought, just played really, really well. The Aaron Jones injury is just a touch worrying to me, where we've talked about it a few times now, where Kevin O'Connell, the first year he has just a zone run game that's not going anywhere. The second year he has a little bit of gap scheme that also just ended up not going anywhere. And this year you're able to use Aaron Jones on some of those outside runs where he has the vision to cut back. You use him on duo a little bit where he's bouncing out to the cornerback and you're just not able to kind of tackle him there. So I'm a little bit worried there. And then KOC, I think, has some Jordan Love in him, and that he's also a big game hunter where he's just going to keep on calling shot plays, trying to take that ball down the field. I love it, but maybe you try and find that dial just a little bit in this game where it just felt like he kept on like throwing down the field, where of course you have Justin Jefferson. You should continue to do that, but then you end up kind of throwing an interception.
Yeah, I mean it's still good for the Vikings to win these games where Darnold might have not had his best day, Kevin O'Connell might have not had his best day as a play caller. Like if you can win the 4 or 5 times that happens for you, just like half the time this year, you should feel pretty good about yourself because you're probably going to win most of the other games where both of them are on, like they've been so far this season. And so you had that type of game in this game against the Jets, which again, very good defense, but Darnold and KOC didn't have their best stuff. But the target Justin Jefferson only offense just like works so well because when they were targeting Justin Jefferson in this game, it was either like a positive reception or a penalty on just most of the targets. And there were so many penalties called on the defensive backs in this game because of the way Jefferson was forcing them to cover them. So when there wasn't as much of a quick game in this offense that was worked into it as much as you would have wanted, I really liked Darnold just like trying to throw to Jefferson as much as he could because usually good things happen when you throw his way.
I mean, this Vikings team has trailed for like 3.5 minutes the entire season. It was in week 1 against the Giants on like the first score of the entire season. It's not like they trailed for anything after that. So it's like a hard kind of examination. But I mean, I just think they're good. I think they're for real. I want to ask you, so when I'm looking at the Vikings stats, I try not to really filter out anything. Like I just want to keep like win probability all the way from 0 to 100. I want to be able to kind of see it all. I don't know if you have any thought. Maybe it's like you wait till later in the season. Maybe it's an off-season thing when you're really kind of looking at specific things. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on kind of like, all right, well, how much of like a win probability filter should we have when we're looking at some of the Viking stats?
Yeah, I do think that's a really good question. And I did see the chart going around that, the Vikings fans were talking about where Darnold ranks first in EPA per play when looking at win probability between, I think, like 14% and 86%.
It was
And so,
clearly in jest.
yeah.
Let the Vikings fans have some fun, Tage. I
No,
was
I
just
respect
asking you
it.
in
Yeah.
theory.
But yeah, like, so when it comes to that, like, First of all, you can put a slight win probability filter on certain things, like especially pass rate. You want to do stuff like 10 and 90%, but 90% and 10% like aren't insane win probabilities where it's like that's like the game is over. Like teams come back from being at 10% win probability, lose games at 90% win probability all the time. And when CFB numbers on Twitter has looked at this before on like what is the most predictive of future success, he found that just keeping all plays in is the most predictive because football is already a pretty low sample size sport in general. You only play 17 games and there's only 70 plays on offense, happening in that game on average. And so you're not getting a huge sample like you do in the NBA or MLB. So you might as well keep the majority of plays in and try to get the most signal from how a team performs in all areas of the game off of that.